Hello, hello, everybody. How are you today? Hope your summer holidays are good. Can you type in the chat box? What are you doing during your summer holidays? And what are your plans for the long weekend that we are going to have? Let's have a look together. So today's topic will be about communication and especially effective communication. Yeah. Oh, Polina, hello. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. So, pencil in, please, the agenda of our webinar. It's going to be about effective communication, the principles, rules and tips, and problems. The concept of miscommunication and verbal and non-verbal communication. Good. So let's check what you've already known and what you already know about communication. Can you type what communication means for you? What usually problems do you have during communication? Oh, hello, Yeva. Hello, Margarita. Okay, nothing special. Just sit at home, stay at home. Yeah, Veronica, stay at home. Yeah, because sit at home it's from Ukrainian. It's better to stay at home. Okay. Oh, Polina, very good. I'm going to camp tomorrow, so good luck with your camp. Good. Okay. Fine. Okay, some people are watching us. That's so nice that there are people who watch you. Let me just check the chat one more time. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's get it started. So, so communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place or person or a group to another. Every communication involves at least one sender here, a message, and a recipient. This may sound simple, but communication is actually a very complex subject. The transmission of the message from sender to recipient can be affected by a huge range of things. And today we are going to look at most of them. Yeah, what are the probable hardships during communication? What are the problems because of our culture, because of our cultural background, and others? Okay. The transmission of the message from a sender to recipient, from a sender to recipient, can be affected by a huge range of things, as I said before. These include our emotions, the cultural situation, the cultural background, as usually generally known, yeah, the medium used to communicate. The medium, it means whether you use your phone, whether you use your other devices, or maybe you type something or whatever. And even our location. The complexity is why good communication skills are considered so desirable by employees around the world, is that the communication has to be accurate, effective, and unambiguous. And to combine all three positions is extremely hard and complicated issue. Let me just, hello everybody, Ira, Eva, hello. Okay, good. Okay, so I want to stop a little bit at one stuff. Accurate. What's accurate in communication? Accurate communication is when you send the correct and appropriate message. You send it not like you've heard something and you've listened to something and you say that it's accurate information. No, that's why you need to provide some citations, some references where you've heard. That's why in English we have special, maybe you have learned these constructions. They are called impersonal passive constructions. For example, maybe you have read somewhere and maybe you have heard something on TV, on the internet, or whatever, on YouTube. And you need to distance yourself from the source of information to make your message accurate. For example, you use such constructions as it is believed, it's generally acknowledged, it's generally known, or it's believed, yeah, it's considered to be like that, it's generally considered to be like that, and some else. You can check these constructions out. They are called distancing constructions, where you, with the help of which you distance yourself from the source of information to be 100% accurate in what you are saying. Even if it's not accurate, you said that I didn't say that, and I didn't state or claim that something is true, but I have heard it. Yeah, I have heard from some source of information. Okay, effective. We're going to have a look at the effective communication, but effective communication is when you send a message to receiver and receiver instantly understands what you wanted to send, what you wanted to say, or what you wanted him to understand. And effective communication is when there is no obstacles. You for receiver to understand the message. And also when you use the small amount of resources to send your message, yeah, after that it will be effective. And the last point, unambiguous. Unambiguous is it's the easiest point in this in our webinar. Unambiguous is not two-sided. Yeah, there is like you say something and there is some message at in the bottom of your message. No, it should be straightforward. You say something and the receiver should understand what you are saying or what you wanted to say. That's why unambiguous is straightforward, direct. Nobody has to find some nobody has to read between the lines your message. It's not the literature that somebody has to understand somehow what devices you have used or what message you wanted to send to him. You simply have to be straightforward. Cool. Thanks a lot. As this definition makes clear, communication is more than simply the transmission of information. The term requires an element of success in transmitting or imparting a message, whether information, ideas, or emotions. A communication, therefore, has three parts: the sender, the message, and the recipient. I have told this one. The sender encodes the message, usually in a mixture of words and non-verbal communication. It's transmitted in some way, for example, in speech or in writing, in typing, whatever. And the recipient decodes it. So our communication is simply the programming language. You, the sender, encodes, the recipient decodes it. Of course, there may be more than one recipient, and the complexity of communication means that each one may receive a slightly different message. Usually, two people may read very different things into the choice of words and body language. It's also possible that neither of them will have quite the same understanding as the sender. In face-to-face communication, the roles of the sender and recipient are not distinct, are not explicit. The two roles will pass back and forwards between two people talking. Both parties communicate with each other, even if in very subtle ways, such as through eye contact or lack of eye contact and general body language. In written communication, however, the sender and recipient are more distinct. So here I would like to stop and to draw your attention to some important stuff that I've said before. Usually we don't have in our speech distinct roles, like I'm a sender, you are a recipient, I'm talking, you are listening. No, we have a dialogue. And we have a dialogue. That's why the roles are juggling. We are juggling the roles, and that's why we don't have distinct roles. We don't know whether we are a sender, whether we are a receiver. That's why we need to be unambiguous, so everybody can understand you. Sometimes we can have more than two people. And what I wanted to draw your attention to is that now, in the era of internet, actually, David Crystal highlighted this phenomenon, this modern phenomenon of the internet. Have you heard about David Crystal? And it's a very famous linguist. If you have heard, so can you please type in the chat box what works and what topics have you read from his works or masterpieces? Okay, hello. No messages. Good. So David Crystal highlighted the phenomenon of our modern internet typing and chatting. Never before has a person experienced such a new way of communication. It was like a phenomenon when in one chat, 30 people or even 40 or 100 or even more can talk together, can communicate, and can even understand each other. So according to our nature, according to our human nature, it's not possible to do such stuff, to communicate with 30 people simultaneously. It's something like from beyond the reality, beyond the understanding. And David Crystal highlighted this issue and tried to explain it. So the times are changing. The person's brain is filtrating much more information every day. Some of which he doesn't want to filtrate, so you don't pay attention to them. Some of which it filtrates and obviously reacts. So obviously we are reading, we are reacting, and so we are communicating. So this is the phenomenon of the modern time, of the modern internet era. You can check out David Crystal's works because they are very interesting. He did a great job. He did so big contribution to the linguistics that you can't even imagine. He explained in a simple words how linguistics works. This very difficult phenomenon. He also talked about the English language as global lingua franca, and you can check it out. Good. So the sense of communication is the reaction it causes. So as I said before, communication is not just talking, it's also your behavior. It's everything. It's just when you get in the contact, when you keep in touch with somebody, when you get in a close contact with somebody, that's communication. You communicate. And the sole objective of the communication is the reaction that it causes. So the way message is delivered always affects the way message is received. That's the okay. Let's go not into problems. That's why. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the kinds of messages that we can have. We can have a wide range of communication and a wide range of ways of communication. The first one and the most popular is spoken or verbal communication, which includes face-to-face, telephone, radio, or television or other media. After that, we have nonverbal or paralanguage, covering body language, paralanguage, gestures, how we dress or act, where we stand, and even our scent. Yes, scent, how the perfume, yeah. There are many subtle ways that we communicate, perhaps even unintentionally, with others. For example, the tone of our voice, the pitch of our voice can give clues to mood or emotional state, whilst hand signals or gestures can add to a spoken message. We also have written communication, which includes letters, emails, social media, books, magazines, the internet, and other media. So I said before you, about the internet phenomenon. Until recent times, a relatively small number of writers and publishers were very powerful when it came to communicating the written word. Today, we can all write and publish our ideas online, which has led to an explosion of information and communication possibilities. I wanted to add something about written communication. As I said that writers had a powerful explosion of communication because writer, when he writes a book, he can reach and he can hit not a group of people around him, but he can hit billions of people or millions of people, because of his one book. He can people can disagree with him, and people can always argue with him. By the way, they can support him, so they can stand up for his ideas and for his attitudes. I wanted to say about the art. Art has also become, it's also a written communication with people. A lot of artists communicated with people throughout the history, and the message that they wanted to deliver, the message that they wanted to send was very powerful, was kind of almighty. For example, Pablo Picasso and his work Guernica was painted after the First World War, when the Spanish town, a very small Spanish town, was bombed and was bombarded by German bombs. I don't really know history very well, and that's why it was ruined. it doesn't exist now. It was neglected, and that's why Pablo Picasso wanted to deliver this message that no, stop. It's not so good. Have a look what you have done. And this painting became like the explicit example of the how powerful can be the message that painters or the artists send. Also, Francis Scott Fitzgerald in his novel The Great Gatsby, which is often compared to Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, also sends a very powerful message that following the desirable dream, something like it will lead to despair when you follow the your desirable dreams that doesn't unworthy desirable dream will obviously lead to despair. Doesn't matter. Yeah, you just have to live your own life and your like that. So Francis Scott Fitzgerald was also like a very almighty communicator with his also Shakespeare was, by the way, when I have mentioned Shakespeare, was considered to be the father of powerful communication with the people. Every time in at that times, they had some problems with their economic condition in the country. Also, they had some problems with slavery, and that's why every book, every piece of work that was brought out by Shakespeare was immensely supported, because nobody could even sue him, because the government wanted to sue him, but after all they couldn't, because Shakespeare was the master of ambiguity. Yeah, he didn't send the message directly. He was ambiguous in his works. That's why, but people understood that, and people decoded this message so that they could support him. They could stand up to what he was saying. Yeah, and that's I wanted to say about the examples from our history. Okay, another stuff that I wanted to draw your attention to is the cultural background and effective communication in the context of in a multicultural context or in multicultural settings. So our environment isn't just the air we breathe or the food we eat. A big part of our environment is culture. Culture is made up of the common things that members of a community learn from family, friends, media, literature, and even strangers. These are the things that influence how they look, act, and communicate. Often we don't even know we are learning these things because they become second nature to us. For instance, the way you shake hands with somebody, when meeting somebody, when you eat your meals every day, the kind of things you find funny, or how you view religion. Can you please type in the chat box while I will be delivering the message about cultural background and the effectiveness of the communication? Can you type some funny stories or some surprising stories or even sad stories that happened because of the miscommunication, because of the problems of communication with the person from another culture? In the chat box, please. Okay. Okay, good. So I will read after that. When a person is forced to communicate with the representatives of a foreign country, people from different ethnic background, or what's more, translate for them. So the translators often enter a culture that is different from their own, translated from their own. Sometimes these cultures may be even contradictory. What may be perfectly normal in one culture, for instance, spending hours eating a meal with your family, might be unusual in a culture that values a more fast-paced lifestyle. Another instance of the most recurrent ethnic bound culture shock is a lack of awareness why hearing words alone is not sufficient to discern meaning. Sometimes silence communication is far more effective than just speaking. Such things as touching, eye contact, and other kinds of body language need to be observed and correctly interpreted because nonverbal communication carries important clues about the message the individual is trying to convey. Unlike the European people, Asians consider it rude to meet gazes too long, to keep the eye contact too long. Unlike the European people, we can keep eye contact, and eye contact is very important in our culture. However, it's just the opposite in some Western countries. So when a Western meets an Asian, the Asian thinks the Westerner is rude, while the Westerner thinks the Asian is sneaky. Yes, so there is the contradiction between the sending the message in different cultures. Okay. So while I'm waiting for, okay, okay, okay. People may misinterpret the motives of their colloquiators with a different ethnic background. For example, one group may assume that they are simply exchanging information about what they believe, but the other believes that they are negotiating a change in behavior. This is most likely to arise when the parties are not completely honest with each other from the outset. Individuals may wish to protect their privacy. Corporations may be concerned about industrial espionage, and politicians may be bound by requirements of secrecy in the national interest. Nevertheless, clarifying the purpose of the interaction is essential to eliminating confusion, particularly if vested interests are involved. It's very important to draw from the outset people's attention to what is the aim of our communication and what rules we should follow in order to achieve this effective communication. Okay. Friction may also arise between two people when one or both have little knowledge of the other's background. For example, in Paris, when out for a morning walk, you say bonjour to everyone. You pass and get a cheer greeting, in return saying bonjour to you. But if you do that in New York, and people will scurry away from you. Greeting, for example, people with a warm handshake is both friendly and polite in Western countries. Some of them even hug the strangers if they feel especially friendly towards someone they just met on, or even kiss in cheeks. However, Eastern societies or Eastern people consider such obvious display of affection of your emotions a taboo. So no handshake, no huggings or kissing. No, maybe handshake is okay, but kissing, hugging is not appropriate in Eastern countries. It's widely held that cultural psychology offers means by which people of different ethnic background may interact without prejudice. With the advent of the internet, an even more important purpose may arise, allowing whole cultures to interact while retaining their ethnic identity. Experience makes it easier to cope with the difficulties of ethnic-bound culture shock. Some common strategies used to make the transition easier are learning about the country and its culture through reading, studying the language or attending cultural classes. This way, the country and its people become more familiar. One is more aware of different and better prepared to deal with them. If the translator doesn't want to get engaged in cultural misunderstanding, she needs to be open-minded about the culture of people she communicates with and accept its unfamiliar aspects. People from different ethnic backgrounds encode and decode messages differently, increasing the chances of misunderstanding. So the safety-first consequence of recognizing cultural difference should be to assume that everyone's thoughts and actions are not just like ours. Yeah, it's a very important point that we have to understand that ethnic background or ethnic bound problems may cause miscommunication. So in order to be on the safe side, always be prepared. Prepare some cliched phrases that they say while greeting each other or while communicating with each other. Be prepared to some gestures, to some cliched movements that they do either when greeting or saying goodbye or whatever. So always be prepared to this one. What I wanted to tell you also is about the effective communication with the ethnic cultures. So after that, we are going to have a look at the examples of special cultures. But before going to that, let's have a look at the culture itself. There is a paradigm, or there is an iceberg, cultural iceberg, that was created by Edward T. Hall in it seems to me 77 or 19, well, doesn't matter, in the 20th century, at the end of 20th century. And he explained why we are different and why miscommunication happens in while different representatives of different cultures stuck together to communicate. So at the bottom, 10% of our iceberg, have you seen the iceberg? It's a top here, small top outside the water, and a very big chunk inside the water. It's 90% of the iceberg. So 10% of our iceberg is something that we can explicitly see. So the customs, traditions, clothes, some of their greetings, something that you can see straight away. It's 10%. But the 90% of the bottom of the iceberg consists of something that we can't see. So implicit aspects. They are the perceptions, time perceptions. These are some beliefs, mindset, attitudes, religion, some kind of habits, or history or historically bound behavior. So something that you can't explicitly see, but you feel it. Feel it with your own gut feeling. Feeling with the help of your gut. So what I'm saying is that you can't totally be sure that you behave correctly, and when you say something, it can be interpreted correctly. That's because of the cultural iceberg or different cultural paradigm of another country. So what I wanted to say you, some of the tips that could help you to be on the safe side and to be interpreted correctly. So the first one is always be prepared. So something that I said before, read somewhere about the basic principles of their communication, about the basic gestures, about the basic greetings or greeting gestures that they have or whatever. Okay. After that, but don't overdo and don't do it too much. Don't seem to know everything about their culture. Because it will be kind of rude when you pretend to be like the part of their culture, to be immersed in their culture, but that's not true. You are not the part of their, you are not the member of their society, and you are not the culturally nurtured person. So don't pretend that you know everything about their culture. Always avoid some taboo words, some taboo verbal stuff, phrases, or taboo gestures, like in Eastern society, there are a lot of taboos. Hugging and kissing is a taboo. Also, keeping an eye contact in Finland is also a taboo. Keeping like all the time taboo. Also, in for Indian people, it seems to me also keeping an eye contact. But we will go into have a look at something. Okay, great. So we have done with this one. Use the paralanguage to show, be positive, be diplomatic. Also, I wanted to say about be diplomatic. If you have some if you have some problems with communication and some obstacles appeared, some of the miscommunication appeared, and the conflict is arising, be prepared, be always diplomatic, because diplomacy usually helps to iron these problems down. So let's have a look at another cultures. So what about Japan? Japan, consistent with most descriptions of Japanese negotiation behavior, their style of interaction is among the least aggressive or most polite. Threats, commands, and warnings appear to be de-emphasized in favor of the more positive promises, recommendations, and commitments. Particularly indicative of their polite conversational style was their infrequent use of no and you and facial gazing, as well as more frequent silent periods. I'm the Japanese philologist, and as a Japanese philologist, I can say you that they don't use the word I. They don't use the word yes or no. They kind of want to avoid saying something aggressive, being very sharp, being very being very sharp, rejected or whatever. They always avoid doing this with the help of some verbal expressions. There are millions of them. There are so many polite constructions. They have even 3 styles of politeness, even five styles of politeness, and all these 5 styles have their special constructions. So when you said that learning English is difficult, that's not, because you should learn in Japanese these 5 constructions. Okay, so Japanese. Korean. Korean negotiators used considerably more commands than did the Japanese. Koreans used the word no and interrupted more than 3 times as frequently as the Japanese. Moreover, no silent periods occurred between Korean negotiations. They are very sharp, and they because time is business, and they always interrupt you. But in Japanese culture, you won't be interrupted. Sometimes some friends of mine said that there is such a problem when you wanted to speak to somebody, they will be silent, and it's okay. You just sit silently, and there is some kind of stupid and weird stop of silence that we Ukrainians feel uncomfortable, but for them that's totally okay. China, sorry, Eastern cultures. China. The behaviors of the negotiators from China were most remarkable in the emphasis of on asking questions, 34%. Indeed, 70% of the statements made by the Chinese negotiators were classified as information exchange tactics. Okay, the same. Yeah, they are kind of very, very inquisitive culture. About Russia. The Russian style was quite different from that of any other European group, and indeed was quite similar in many respects to the style of the Japanese. They used no and you infrequently and used the most silent periods of any group. Only the Japanese did less facial gazing, and only the Chinese asked a greater percentage of questions. Somewhere in between, yeah. We are also very similar to um, Eastern to Russians. Yeah, Germany. The behaviors of the Germans are difficult to characterize. However, the Germans were exceptional in the high percentage of self-disclosures, 48%, and the low percentage of questions, 11%. Self-disclosures kind of they showed the emotions. Yeah. United Kingdom. The behaviors of the British negotiators were remarkably similar to those of the Americans in all respects. British people believe that most British negotiators have a strong sense of the right way to negotiate and the wrong. Protocol is of great importance. However, the right way of negotiation may be a completely different concept for people from different cultures. Some cultures may consider the British negotiation style as extremely cold and arrogant. Spain. Diga is perhaps a good metaphor for the Spanish approach to negotiations. When you make a phone call in Madrid, the usual greeting on the other end is not hola, hello, but is instead diga, speak, diga, speak. It's not surprising that the Spaniards in the videotaped negotiations likewise used the highest percentage of commands, 17% of any of the groups, and gave comparatively little information. Self-disclosures, only 34%. Moreover, they interrupted one another more frequently than any other group. And they used the terms no and you very frequently. What about France? The style of the French negotiators was perhaps the most aggressive of all the groups. In particular, they used the highest percentage of threats and warnings, together 8%. They also used interruptions, facial gazing, and no and you very frequently compared with the other groups. And one of the French negotiators touched his partner on the arm during the simulation. So when you can see that French, really, I have read a lot of researches that French style of communication is the most aggressive. And it's also even more aggressive when French people communicate with other cultures, with other representatives. It's even more aggressive. What about the United States? Like the Germans and the British and the Americans, fell in the middle of most continuum. They did interrupt one another less frequently than all the others, but that was their sole distinction, that they didn't interrupt one another. Yeah, and that's kind of a stuff. What I wanted to tell you is the trick which is often used for effective communication. Sometimes it's very difficult to say no. And sometimes it's very difficult to express your disagreement with somebody. That's why, but you have to reach this effectiveness of your communication. So you have to use some trick to either express your opinion and not to be rude at the same time. So my trick is assertiveness. What is assertiveness? Assertiveness is the ability to express one's feelings and assert one's rights while respecting the feelings and rights of others. Assertive communication is appropriately direct, open, and honest, and clarifies one's needs to the other person. Assertiveness comes naturally to some, but is a skill that can be learned. People who have mastered the skill of assertiveness are able to greatly reduce the level of interpersonal conflict in their lives, thereby reducing a major source of stress. Being assertive is not being aggressive, I should say. It's effective communication. Well, is not being aggressive. So always remember this. How does assertiveness compare to other behavior? Sometimes people confuse aggressiveness with assertiveness, seeing that both types of behavior involve standing up for one's rights and expressing one's needs. The key difference between the two styles is that individuals behaving assertively will express themselves in ways that respect the other person. They assume the best about people, respect themselves, and think win-win and try to compromise. In contrast, individuals behaving aggressively will tend to employ tactics that are disrespectful, manipulative, demeaning, or abusive, or offending. They make negative assumptions about the motives of others and think in relationary terms, or they don't think of the other person's point of view at all. They win at the expense of others and create unnecessary conflict. Probably you will also win. Both of them are win-win situations, but one win-win will be positive in the long run. Another one will be completely negative, and it will completely hinder your success. Passive individuals don't know how to adequately communicate their feelings and needs to others. So assertiveness really helps people who are shy, who can't express themselves, who are always embarrassed when talking to others and when expressing their thoughts and feelings. So passive individuals don't know how to adequately communicate. They tend to fear conflict so much that they let their needs go unmet and keep their feelings secret in order to keep the peace. They let others win while they lose out. The problem with this, which I'll go into the more detail momentarily, is that everybody involved loses, at least to an extent. Yes, so everybody loses. Why everybody loses? That's because one person, even maybe he has such an interesting thought. Maybe he was right, but he will lose at any time. Inevitably, he will lose because he can't express his point of view. His needs are not met. That's why assertiveness really helps. What does assertiveness look like? Here are some common scenarios with example of each style of behavior. Scenario A. Someone cuts in front of you at the supermarket. An aggressive response would be to assume they did it on purpose and angrily say, "Hey, jackass, no cuts." Hey, it's negative. A passive response would be to just let the person stay in front of you. An assertive response would be to assume that they may not have seen you in line and politely say, "Excuse me, but I was in line." Yeah, it's assertive. Scenario B. Your friend, who can be quite verbose, calls to vent about her bad day. Unfortunately, you have a lot of work to do and don't have time to talk. To vent about, yeah, to say, "Oh, I want to vent to you about my bad day. Listen to me." An aggressive response would be to become angry that she obviously doesn't respect your time, cut her off, and sarcastically say, "Oh, get over it. I have my own problems." A passive response would be to let her talk for as long as she needs and figure that your deadline can suffer. She needs your help. An assertive response would be to listen for a minute or two, then compassionately say, "Wow, it sounds like you're having a tough day. I'd love to talk to you about it, but I don't have the time right now. Can we talk later tonight?" That will be a good assertive response to avoid conflict and to be in a win-win situation. What are the benefits of the assertiveness? Assertiveness affects many areas of life. Assertive people tend to have fewer conflicts in their dealings with others, which translates into much less stress in their lives. They get their needs met, which also means less stressing over unmet needs, and help others get their needs met too. Having stronger, more supportive relationships virtually guarantees that in a bind, they have people they can count on, which also helps with stress management and even leads to a healthier body. Contrasting with this, aggressiveness tends to alienate others and create unnecessary stress. Those on the receiving end of aggressive behavior tend to feel attacked and often avoid the aggressive individual, understandably. Over time, people who behave aggressively tend to have a string of failed relationships and little social support. And they don't always understand that this is related to their own behavior. Ironically, they often feel like victims too. Passive people aim to avoid conflict by avoiding communication about their needs and feelings. But this behavior damages relationships in the long run. They may feel like victims, but continue to avoid confrontation, becoming increasingly angry until when they finally do say something, it comes out aggressively. It's like letting off some steam, yeah, when the person was collecting and piling his dissatisfaction, and after then it just boom, yeah, it explodes. The other party doesn't even know there is a problem until the formerly passive individual virtually explodes. This leads to hard feelings, weaker relationships, and more passivity. Yeah, so be always kind of wise about be always wise about what you are saying, and assertiveness will really help you with the effective communication you're having. So let's go to verbal and non-verbal communication. By the way, we are wrapping up in 7 minutes. I would like to express. Okay, yeah. I would like to read some comments. Thanks a lot. I haven't had any funny stories about communicating with foreigners yet. Unfortunately, I don't have enough experience in this yet. Okay. I wish everything will be positive, Margarita. Yeah, everything will be positive. I didn't know that French don't like when tourists are talking to them in English. And once, when I was in Paris, I went to the cafe and started talking in English. And as a result, all workers were ignoring me till I've changed the language. Yes, yeah, but I know that they vehemently oppose to use. They know the language, they know English, but they vehemently oppose. They are so aggressive. I just, it's the most romantic city in the world, Paris, but people are really aggressive. I wish they were so friendly and convivial as Ukrainians are. because it's just unbearable. I can't. So listen to now. I would like to express. We are going to have a surprise quiz. I will. You are going to have a quiz, and you have to solve the riddle and to guess the word that I will explain you. The first one in the chat to guess the word will get a surprise from me. Okay? So listen, remember, listen very attentively, and the person who will be the first in the chat to guess the word will get the prize from me. Okay? So we have two types of communication, verbal and non-verbal. Verbal, delivering a message using all kinds of words and sounds. Non-verbal, paralanguage, all forms of communication except words, so gestures and stuff like that. So let's have a look at the non-verbal one. Appearance, yeah, as I said, clothes, hairstyle, choice of colors. Gestures, hand movements, winking, nodding. Be careful with the gestures because fidgeting, yeah, like you can't sit on one place, fidgeting, yeah, is very rude and it can be interpreted in a negative context. You can look very furtive towards other people. Facial expression, smile or frown. Postures, arm crossing, leg crossing, sitting position. Eye contact, movement of eyes, blinking. And paralinguistics, your tone of voice, speech, loudness. I have one question about tone of your voice. Having a neutral, having a flat intonation like, how are you? I'm fine. And you? Or how do you feel today? Is it neutral or is it rude or is it polite? Can you type in the chat box, is it polite or rude or neutral? While you are typing, I will proceed to our guessing game. So this is a language. This is a language. The second word is language. Yeah, the second word is language. You have to guess the first word. So this is the word that means non-verbal. It's a synonym to non-verbal, or it's a synonym to body. Oh, Margarita, no, it's rude. The intonation which is flat is very rude. So always use some positive intonation. Yeah, rising, falling, rising, falling. How are you? I'm fine. Yeah, and you? So this is polite. So it makes you interested in the speaker. No, Sasha, no. It's not polite. It's rude. So always use some interested in intonation. Yeah, how are you? I'm fine, and you? Yeah, how's your work? Cool, and you? So always use some kind of interested intonation. So let's proceed. Let's proceed to our guessing game. So the second word is language. The first word is synonym to body language, to non-verbal language. There is a hint for you. In the Ukrainian language, this word sounds like a couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, in the Ukrainian, not in the English. But in the Ukrainian, it sounds like that. And we have the word a couple, yeah, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband and wife. But in English, it means body language. So please, I'm waiting for your answers. The first one will receive a gift from me. I see the most active people today. So I will, of course, write them, note them down. So please, the language, which is nonverbal, which is body language, but in the Ukrainian, this word means a couple. Means a couple. It sounds like a couple, a boyfriend, usually a boyfriend and a girlfriend. So what's the word? Please. It's not so difficult. A couple means a couple. It's a body language. Come on, let's be quick. It's not so difficult for you. Who will get the prize? Who will get the prize today? So nobody's answering. This word is on my presentation now, and you can clearly see it. So that's it sounds like a couple in Ukrainian. Exactly like a couple in Ukrainian. And it's a kind of language that means body language. Please be quick. Nobody's answering. Nobody wants, and does nobody want a prize from me for being so active today? So please, guys. Oh, Margarita, well done. Paralanguage. Thanks a lot. So Margarita is the winner today. Thanks a lot for participating. I will write yeah, yes, exactly. Margarita is the first one. We have a winner. Ira and everybody who is writing the correct answers, please don't be disappointed. We will have also such prize sessions for active students, for students who participate in the webinar. Yeah, Yeva, very good. So don't feel disappointed. We will have such prize sessions throughout the summer, throughout our summertime period or summertime time. Thanks a lot. Yeah, Polina, very good. Thanks a lot. I will write the name. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the webinar. See you on the next. See you next Friday. Have a good summer. Have a good weekend.